The galaxy was collapsing under the relentless advance of a cruel alien force known as the Korth Dominion, a species that destroyed entire worlds without warning or mercy. Cities were reduced to ash, populations erased, and the peaceful civilizations of countless planets vanished almost overnight. On the moon of Tevel, one survivor moved cautiously through the remains of what had once been a vibrant city. She was small and fragile compared to the enormous destruction around her, her clothes torn, her body covered in dirt and minor wounds, and her heart heavy with loss. She had witnessed her family being killed, her home being burned, and the streets she had once known filled with screams and fire. Each step she took was careful, avoiding the glowing red searchlights of Korth drones that swept the ruins for any remaining life. The air was thick with smoke and dust, carrying the scent of burning metal and charred buildings, making every breath a struggle. She felt completely alone, haunted by memories of laughter and warmth that no longer existed, and she moved without purpose except to survive another hour, another day. She had no tools, no weapons, and no companions. The world around her offered nothing but danger and despair. Cold nights forced her to seek shelter in collapsed tunnels and ruined buildings, where shadows became both friend and enemy, hiding her from predators but amplifying her fear. She learned quickly that sound could be deadly. Even the slightest noise could attract the Korth and mean certain death. Yet her instincts refused to let her stop, compelling her to crawl forward even when every muscle ached and every thought begged her to surrender. Memories of her people, gentle and peaceful by nature, clashed with the cruel reality that kindness had been punished by annihilation. Fear and sorrow became constant companions, shaping her into someone smaller, quieter, almost invisible, while the ruins of her city loomed like silent witnesses to the horror that had passed. The moonscape was jagged, full of crumbled towers, fractured streets, and exposed pipelines that had once carried water and energy, now serving as obstacles and traps for the weary traveler. At night, the stars above seemed cold and indifferent, offering no comfort as she moved among shattered buildings and toppled monuments, stepping over the remains of those who had not survived. Every sound of distant machinery, every glow of alien light, made her heart race and her hands tremble, reminding her how vulnerable she was in a universe that had turned against her. Yet despite the terror and exhaustion, there was a faint spark deep within, a stubborn will to keep moving, to not vanish entirely like the city around her. She had no home to return to, no family to guide her, and nothing to cling to except the fragile thread of life itself. Crawling through tunnels, over rubble, and under the cold sky, she became a shadow among shadows, her body and spirit tested beyond anything she had ever known. The Korth drones continued their search, sweeping through the ruins with mechanical precision, their red lights cutting through smoke and darkness, forcing her to hide and hold her breath, wishing she could simply disappear. Every step was a gamble, every breath a risk. And yet she kept moving forward, driven by a quiet hope that survival was possible, that perhaps, somewhere beyond the smoke and devastation, life could exist again. And while she could not know it, a moment was approaching that would change everything, a force unlike the Korth, something that would pierce her despair and offer a flicker of hope that she had long thought lost forever. Captain Elias Rowe struggled to pull himself from the wreckage of his damaged human warship, the Uns Resolute, its hull scarred and smoking from the crash that had torn it from orbit and sent it plummeting onto the ruined moon. Pain coursed through his body, blood trickling from cuts on his face and arms, but instinct and duty drove him onward. Every movement was difficult, each step testing the limits of his endurance, yet he could not stop. Survival depended on his ability to keep moving, to find life, to protect what remained. The once proud ship, designed for speed and scouting, now lay twisted and broken, its systems barely functional. Yet even in its battered state, it had fulfilled its purpose by warning others of the approaching Korth threat. Ro's eyes scanned the shattered landscape carefully, alert for any signs of danger, knowing the Korth Dominion would not forgive stragglers or survivors. The ruins stretched endlessly, filled with the skeletons of buildings, toppled structures and debris, each shadow potentially hiding deadly enemies or innocent survivors. Amidst this devastation, he heard a sound that cut through the wind and silence, a soft, fragile cry. It was small and hesitant, yet impossible to ignore, carrying a note of fear and despair that drew him forward. Following the noise, he entered a collapsed transit tunnel, the air thick with smoke and dust, and saw a figure curled against the wall. The girl's wide eyes reflected terror and disbelief, a silent testimony to the horrors she had endured. Ro lowered his weapon slowly, careful not to frighten her further, and removed his helmet, revealing a face marked with exhaustion and pain, yet carrying an unmistakable warmth. His voice was gentle, quiet, almost a whisper, as he reassured her that she was safe, that he would not harm her, and that she could trust him. Each word seemed to sink into the girl's soul, easing the tight grip of fear that had held her for days, perhaps weeks. She was frozen, unsure whether this human was friend or threat, but there was something in his gaze, a depth of empathy and determination that reached her heart. He offered her the simplest of gestures, a promise spoken softly, to stay, to protect, to survive together. It was not grand or heroic in the way of battles or weapons, but it was powerful, resonating in a place that had been hollowed out by loss and suffering. The girl, who had wandered through the ruins believing herself utterly alone, felt a spark of something she had thought lost forever: hope. For the first time since her city was destroyed, she sensed that someone cared, that survival was possible, and that companionship could exist even amidst the ashes of her world. The human did not rush her or demand anything. He only waited patiently, offering quiet reassurance through presence and words. That moment was fragile and small, yet it marked the beginning of a change she could not yet comprehend. As she clung to the corner of the tunnel, trembling and wary, a sense of trust began to grow, like a fragile seed sprouting in a barren field. She realized that even in a galaxy where entire species could be wiped out without notice, humans had something different, a stubborn courage and kindness that could pierce despair. Ro's quiet voice, his patient gestures, and the simple act of offering protection became a lifeline, and she instinctively leaned into it, not fully understanding why, but knowing that the decision to stay would be the first step toward survival and perhaps even toward something more. The ruined moon seemed a little less empty, the air a little less suffocating, as two beings from completely different worlds found the faintest connection amid chaos, setting the stage for a partnership that would challenge the darkness and change the course of what was to come. The quiet of the ruined moon was shattered when the distant hum of engines grew louder, and human ships began to appear over the horizon, arriving with precision and purpose. What had seemed like a hopeless situation suddenly transformed as dozens, then hundreds, of vessels took position above the planet, forming a coordinated fleet unlike anything the Korth Dominion had encountered. The ships ranged from small, agile fighters that darted like fireflies to massive carriers bristling with weapons and armor, all moving as if they were one organism, a testament to human ingenuity, teamwork, and relentless determination. Selah, still weak and recovering from her wounds, watched from the safety of a human carrier, astonished by the scale of the effort and the energy that radiated from every soldier and pilot. Humans worked with a combination of urgency and calm precision, repairing damage, checking systems, and coordinating attacks, all while offering her food, clothing, and care. She realized quickly that despite being smaller and less powerful than the Korth, humans possessed a quality that made them formidable, a refusal to give up, a stubborn courage that transformed fear into action. As the Korth fleet appeared on sensors, dark and vast, the sheer numbers of the enemy seemed overwhelming, yet humans did not hesitate. Fighters launched from carriers, weaving through space at incredible speed, dodging massive laser blasts and missiles while returning fire with precise timing. Human battle tactics relied on cooperation, sacrifice, and adaptability. They shielded one another, absorbed damage, and risked their own lives to protect allies, their commitment shining through every maneuver. Sayla noticed how each action, though small in isolation, combined to form a coordinated force that challenged even the most advanced Korth ships. Human engineers and pilots communicated constantly, learning from each encounter, adjusting positions and weapons to respond to the enemy's unpredictable moves. She was struck by the way humans could act fearlessly even when surrounded by death, how their will and spirit made them stronger than their physical size or technology alone suggested. The air inside the carrier was tense with anticipation and determination, filled with the sounds of machinery, alerts, and quiet orders shouted over comms. Sayla began to understand the bond among humans, how they trusted and depended on each other, sharing fear and courage equally, and how this unity became a weapon against overwhelming odds. Captain Elias Rowe, still recovering from his injuries, moved among the crew, offering guidance and encouragement, leading by example with calm determination and unwavering focus, showing that leadership was not about power but about inspiring others to keep fighting. Sayla felt a mixture of awe and hope, realizing that she had found not just protection, but a family willing to fight for one another, to defy impossible odds. As the first skirmishes began, lasers cut through the void of space. Missiles left trails of fire against the darkness, and human fighters executed daring maneuvers that forced Korth vessels to react, exposing weaknesses and creating openings. The battle was terrifying and beautiful, a display of courage, intelligence, and human resilience, each action echoing the belief that survival and hope were worth any risk. Sayla, watching from the carrier's observation deck, felt her heart swell with an unfamiliar emotion, a sense of belonging, safety, and trust. She realized that humanity had not only arrived to fight the Korth, but had also given her a reason to hope again, showing that even amidst destruction, life, courage, and compassion could prevail. The humans' arrival transformed despair into determination, fear into action, and chaos into a plan, proving that their presence was a turning point. For the first time since losing everything, Sayla understood that survival was possible, that she was no longer alone, and that these humans, through their courage and unity, might be the key to changing the course of the war and perhaps saving the galaxy itself. The battle raged across the stars, and the human fleet faced the full fury of the Korth Dominion, whose massive dreadnoughts smashed through the ranks with devastating firepower. Explosions lit up the void as human ships were torn apart, leaving trails of debris and smoke that drifted across the dark expanse. The air on every carrier and battleship was tense, filled with the sounds of alarms, shouted commands, and the mechanical hum of weapons and shields working to their limits. Sayla, standing aboard one of the human carriers, watched with a mixture of fear and awe as human pilots launched into the fray, weaving through enemy fire with daring maneuvers that defied logic and probability. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, humans did not retreat. They pressed forward, using teamwork, intelligence, and sheer courage to counter the Korth assault. Shields flared and flickered as human ships absorbed damage to protect weaker allies, sacrificing their own safety to save others, showing a selflessness that seemed incomprehensible to the alien invaders. Human engineers worked tirelessly, rerouting power to reinforce weakened weapons or restore shields, while medics attended to the injured without hesitation, their calm efficiency a testament to training and determination. The Korth, accustomed to fear and submission from other species, were unprepared for such relentless defiance, and moments of hesitation in their ranks gave humans opportunities to strike back with devastating effect. Sayla saw small fighters dive into heavily armed ships, ramming or detonating explosives when ammunition ran out, actions that bought precious seconds for larger vessels to maneuver and attack. Communications across the fleet were constant, orders exchanged quickly, every person and machine moving in precise coordination despite the chaos surrounding them. When the Korth sent messages demanding surrender, humans did not reply with words but with action, refusing to yield even as massive blasts rocked their ships and casualties mounted. The human ability to adapt became evident as damaged ships changed tactics on the fly, creating formations and traps that exploited weaknesses in the enemy fleet, showing an intelligence and resilience that was almost instinctual. Sayla realized that this defiance was not just strategy, it was a reflection of their character, a deep-seated determination to fight for life, for survival, and for something greater than themselves. Her heart pounded as she watched human crews work tirelessly, repairing, firing, shielding, and sacrificing, their faces set with grim determination even when hope seemed dim. Each small victory, each ship that survived, reinforced the human spirit, inspiring others to push harder, take risks, and continue the fight. Even when surrounded by fire and destruction, humans remained unbroken, their courage radiating across the battlefield and touching those who watched. Sayla felt something awaken inside her as she witnessed these acts of bravery, realizing that resilience, loyalty, and hope could exist even in the darkest moments, that life could endure against overwhelming odds. The Korth, for all their power, could not comprehend the strength that came from unity, empathy, and a refusal to surrender, and the human fleet began to turn the tide, exploiting weaknesses in the enemy lines. Sayla understood that humanity's strength was not in numbers or weapons alone, but in their spirit, their willingness to fight not just for themselves, but for those who could not, for allies and for ideals that could not be destroyed by fire or steel. The battle continued with deafening intensity, yet amidst the chaos, she felt a sense of awe and hope, realizing that humans were capable of extraordinary courage, that they could stand unyielding against a force meant to erase all life, and that their defiance would not only protect her, but also shape the future of the galaxy. The final battle against the Korth Dominion reached a level of intensity that seemed to shake the very stars. As the last Korth flagship, massive and terrifying, advanced with destructive intent, determined to crush the human fleet entirely, Captain Elias Rowe took command of the remaining ships, his voice steady as he gave precise orders, guiding battered vessels into a coordinated formation that relied on both courage and strategy. Human fighters launched daring attacks, weaving between enemy fire, drawing attention away from weakened allies, while larger ships absorbed the brunt of devastating weapon strikes, their shields flaring and sparking under the immense pressure. The void was alive with the light of lasers, missiles, and explosions, a chaotic ballet of destruction and heroism, and Sayla watched from the carrier's observation deck, her heart pounding as she tried to comprehend the scale of sacrifice unfolding before her. Every human ship seemed to act with a singular purpose, each crew member pushing past exhaustion, fear, and pain, trusting one another completely to survive the impossible. When the flagship fired its main weapon, a massive beam of energy streaking toward the fleet, Rowe calmly gave an order that would define the battle. Ships linked together, forming a shield wall to protect as many lives as possible. The human vessels trembled and groaned under the strain, their hulls cracking and shields faltering, yet they held, refusing to yield to overwhelming firepower. Amidst the chaos, Sayla realized that her own abilities, long dormant and fragile, could make a difference. Her species possessed resonant energy, a rare gift that was weak alone but could be amplified by human technology. Engineers worked quickly, rerouting power and adjusting systems to focus this energy into a single concentrated strike. Fear surged through her, but the determination she saw in the humans around her gave her courage. She focused, letting her energy flow and rise, screaming as the power burned through her, feeling both pain and purpose in equal measure. The combined force of her resonance and the human amplifiers struck the Korth flagship directly, tearing through its massive hull, causing an explosion that shattered its command core and sent shards of fire and metal spinning into space. Silence followed, broken only by the hum of damaged engines and the distant cries of the wounded. The remaining Korth vessels hesitated, stunned by the loss of their leader and the unyielding resilience of the humans before them. Then, slowly, they began to retreat, withdrawing into the darkness of space, leaving the battered but victorious human fleet behind. Sayla stood among them, trembling, exhausted, yet filled with awe at the unity, courage, and determination she had witnessed. Humans had faced annihilation, had been outnumbered and outgunned, and yet they had prevailed not through sheer force alone, but through spirit, ingenuity, and the willingness to fight for one another and for those who could not fight themselves. The battle had cost lives, left ships in ruins, and scorched the stars. But it had also proven the unbreakable nature of human resilience, the ability to rise against impossible odds, and the courage to sacrifice for a cause greater than self. Sayla understood then that heroism was not about size or strength, but about heart, unity, and determination, and that these qualities could change the course of a war, save countless lives, and inspire hope where there was none. For her, the experience transformed despair into belief, fear into courage, and loneliness into connection. As she realized that humans could face the darkest threats in the galaxy and emerge not only alive but victorious, leaving an indelible mark on the stars they defended. That moment would forever be etched in her memory, a testament to what could be achieved when courage, unity, and the willingness to act against impossible odds combined, and it would shape the rest of her life as she learned what it truly meant to survive, to fight, and to hope. The battle was over, though its echoes lingered across the galaxy, and the stars seemed quieter after the chaos, yet life continued, resilient and unbroken. Sayla stood on the surface of a new planet, a world of open skies and fresh air, far from the ruins of her home, feeling the warmth of the sun on her face for the first time in what felt like forever. Around her, human children ran and played, laughing freely, their joy a sharp contrast to the destruction she had witnessed, and their energy reminded her that life could flourish even after unimaginable loss. She wore clean clothes now, cared for and tended by humans who had saved her, and every small act of kindness had begun to heal the wounds she had carried, both physical and emotional. Ilias Rowe walked beside her, his presence steady and comforting, a silent reminder that courage and protection could exist even in a universe filled with darkness. Their journey together had begun in a tunnel of fear and despair, yet it had grown into trust, partnership, and hope, as he had never pushed her, had never forced her, but had simply offered a hand, a voice, and a promise of safety. Sayla reflected on the battle she had witnessed, the bravery of humans who faced impossible odds, their willingness to sacrifice themselves for one another, and the way they had adapted, learned, and fought as one, never surrendering even when defeat seemed certain. That courage had not only saved lives, but had also transformed her understanding of what it meant to survive, to hope, and to belong. Humans had shown her that heroism was not about destruction or power alone, but about connection, empathy, and the unwavering determination to stand for others, to protect what could not defend itself, and to act even when the outcome was uncertain. She remembered the whispers, the small, quiet words that had offered comfort amidst fear. And she realized that those words had been more powerful than any weapon, more transformative than any battle, because they reminded her that she was not alone and that someone believed in her, even when she had believed nothing and no one could. As she looked around the new world, she saw other survivors beginning to rebuild, aided by humans who extended not only protection but also hope, teaching skills, offering guidance, and inspiring confidence in those who had lost everything. The galaxy was not yet safe, but for the first time, she felt that there was a chance for life to thrive, for civilizations to grow, and for kindness to endure despite the horrors that had come before. Selah understood that humans were more than warriors. They were carriers of hope, and their spirit could ignite courage in the most broken hearts. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for survival, but for the way humanity had shown her what it meant to care, to fight for others, and to create bonds that could withstand even the darkest times. Walking beside Ro, she realized that her own strength had been awakened by their unity, that the choice to stay, to trust, and to act had given her a new purpose, and that the whisper of care and courage had become a guiding light in her life. The quiet moments, the simple acts of human kindness, and the unwavering courage displayed across the stars had proven that hope could exist even in the face of extinction, and that compassion and bravery could change the course of the galaxy itself. Selah knew she would never forget the humans who had fought, sacrificed, and inspired her, and that she would carry their lessons forward, spreading resilience, courage, and hope wherever she went. As the sun set on the new world, casting golden light over the land, she felt a sense of belonging for the first time, understanding that she had found a home not only in a place but in people, and that the human whisper that had promised safety and companionship had indeed changed everything, leaving a mark that would last for the rest of her life, shaping the future of both herself and the galaxy she now had a chance to live in.